Adventure of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Wake up, America! It's time for the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY.com, West Palm Beach's #1 internet radio station. Here's your host, the Pipeman.
We rode across that bridge all night. We talked our way through city lights. Traced all the lines. We're killing time under those buzzing signs.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about our next guest who, oh my God, like time just flies. They have an album called Borders and Boundaries. It's freaking 25 years old. That blows my mind. I don't even think I'm over 25 years old. But let's welcome to the show Chris from Less Than Jake. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you? You said that like shockingly, you can't believe how much time's passed right when you looked at my face. So I was a little bit like that son of a bitch.
I know, right? Listen. It is wild how quick time goes, isn't it? I sit there and I think about 25 years. I'm like, wait a minute, that's like my whole life. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's not.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I would notice all my elders, people in their late 40s, early 50s, elders, right?
Right.
I would notice them just kind of checking out and not giving a damn about anything. You're like, God, they're just so apathetic. You just stop caring when you get older. You realize, man, I'm on the back nine here. Like, I can't worry about all this, superfluous stuff that I've been worried about my whole life. Stupid stuff.
I figured out the actual reason and solution for that, actually.
Yeah.
Because, like people call it midlife crisis. First of all, not everything has to be a crisis, but I figured out what it really is. It's not midlife crisis. It's like you have teenage you who is anti-authority, anti your parents, anti everything except your friends. Those are the people you need to impress, is your friends and your peers. And then you become an adult, a young adult, and then now it switches because everybody's calling you kid and you're like, I'm not a kid. So you start like, you become this other part of you, which is adult you, that does the opposite. It's like you want to impress, and people want to impress their bosses, or they want colleagues, or they do sometimes want to impress authority. And then once you hit like over that 40 age, you're like, you don't have to prove shit to anybody anymore, and you can finally just be you. And you I think it's a combination of that teenage and adult you that you finally find the real you.
Yeah, I kind of think that springs off what I was saying. I just think that, yeah, you get to the point where either you find the real you or you go down a path that's just destructive and dark, and you go through all that, and
yeah,
we've all had our moments, but I don't think I've ever had a midlife crisis, so to speak, that's been a bad thing. I just you just stop doing things that no longer serve you.
No doubt. I think of it more like it was a teen life crisis, because like I'm thankful that I didn't, go down another trajectory and all the stupid shit I did when I was a teenager. But man, I love that you have this special 25th anniversary reissue. So tell us more about it, and like why people should get this cool, reissue of what an amazing album.
Yeah, well, we were going to print the record up for the anniversary, so we could print the last reissue that we did. Or I was like, there's got to be extra stuff. I know we have. So we went and the archives, we all did, and looked for extra demos and things that we've never shared before. So that's what makes it on this re-release. I don't think we're going to be able to do that again. I don't think there's any other unreleased tracks at this point. I think this is like maybe the third time we've done this. I know Fat Records had done a reissue at one point. So again, we would have pressed the record and celebrated the 25th anniversary either way, but we thought we would at least repackage it for the collectors and put some extra stuff on there.
Yeah. So as far as the songs that haven't been released before, what makes them to where they weren't released in the past and that now is a good time?
Again, just the re-release. These are stuff that I had found in my collection, actually. I have one of those huge tubs you put like Christmas ornaments or stuff in your garage. You only use once a year. I have like a tub in there just filled, with mementos and things from our past. And one of them is filled with just CDs and cassette tapes and test pressings of records, etc. And I found a CD from the sessions, a bunch of demos and stuff that we had done at Roger's house prior to going to California to track the record. So that's what's made it on here.
See, I love stuff like that because isn't it kind of cool when you do go through like these tubs of things you've stored that are like from a time past, and you open them up and it's almost like you're getting birthday presents because you forgot you even had most of that stuff.
Yeah, I've tried to do away with a lot of those boxes. Those boxes you open up, you move 5 times, and like there's just cords in there. You're like, well, we don't use these anymore. But you know what? I might need it someday. No, you don't. Throw it away. So I'm pretty organized here. I'm in my my memento room. I have everything that Less Than Jake's ever released in this room right here.
Nice.
So really the only thing I have shoved in the closet are all those extra CDs and cassettes of remixes and demos and practice tapes and those things. And I don't think the practice cassettes are ever going to see the light of day, but we'll see.
You never know. You never know. Listen, too, it is funny. I've gone through that recently, too, where I'm going through stuff that I've probably moved 20 times. And I'm like, why am I saving this? But then there's other stuff that's gold, like what you're releasing on this reissue that is like, oh, my God, this is cool. I need to do something with this.
Well, it's interesting too. My mom was a big, she saved and sent it to me when I went away to college. She saved every birthday and Christmas card I got as a kid from all the relatives. She had them in books, and she sent me with all this stuff. And at some point I just would purge it over the years. And I love you, Mom, no offense, but you just stop having room for stuff. And I remember talking to Rob Cavallo, who produced all those Green Day records and signed Green Day. Rob produced a Less Than Jake record called Anthem, which was the follow-up to Borders and Boundaries. And we were talking one day, and I'm like, he was talking about this band he was in the 80s. I'm like, oh man, you gotta dig up some pictures and come in and show me. He's like, I don't have any. I go, what do you mean? He's like, I don't have any pictures of me from yesterday. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you thinking like, is this guy in the witness protection program or something? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah. He's like, at some point I just threw all that stuff out. He's like, I don't need pictures. All my memories are up here. And he was dead. He was dead serious. Like anything yesterday's clutter, it's already gone. It's a cash check. I'm moving here. And I'll never forget that about him. And you'll notice I consider Rob at least a musical genius in the way that he thinks. And you'll notice that with people, genius and severe autistic, like that can do crazy stuff, they don't listen to the noise. They're like this tunnel vision going straight ahead. And I've thought about Rob a lot over the years when I've been cleaning stuff. I'm like, why am I hanging on to this? For what? It doesn't serve me anymore. Get rid of it.
And I'm a big believer, too, of that clutter. When you have that clutter, it clutters your mind. So to your point, I think part of the reason he's such an amazing musician is because it's free in his head to be able to get creative.
Yeah, I think so. I know when, sometimes negativity and strife can make a great song and create great art. I'll agree with that. But everyday life, it doesn't bode well for me.
Right. Exactly. So what else do we have going on here in 2026 that we want to let the listeners know?
Well, we're going to be releasing some songs. We got offered some different projects this year. So we recorded a couple songs at the end of last year that we're going to throw around. And then we're collecting ideas, putting things together for a new record. We're kind of toying with doing an album. We're going to be over in Europe this summer, playing festivals. Of course, doing the Winter Circus UK run that's coming up here, and just staying busy doing what we do. We're out there for, I don't know, probably 100 shows a year still, flying around, doing our thing, man. It's great.
So I want to know, as somebody that also goes to them as well, is how do you compare the festivals in the UK, the festivals in Europe, and the festivals in the US
Uh,
as an
I
artist?
yeah, I will always prefer the UK festival. Just the mystique of all the books I read growing up, and now getting to see a lot of the YouTube videos of Reading and Leeds from the 70s, and reading about Deep Purple being there and Whitesnake and all these bands that I grew up listening to, and then getting to play Reading and Leeds and Download, and they're just class festivals. The enormity of it. That was the first time I ever walked to a festival that big was Reading and Leeds. And because Less Than Jake had played there. And I had been to other, amphitheater festival shows, Warp Tours in the United States. So certainly
Yeah.
I'd seen a lot of people, but this was an enormity on another level. When you looked at the main stage, it was like 6 stories tall, and the scaffolding, what is going on? Like, this is, next level. So
Totally.
I'll say I'll go with the UK for still being my favorite. European festivals are dialed in, and there's great ones in the US, and there's also crappy festivals everywhere too, and that's for another podcast.
That's totally true. That would actually make a good podcast episode.
Oh my God, I could talk for hours. I'd be your first 10 guests.
There you go.
Yeah,
I love it.
everything from the rotten catering to the toilet accommodations. We could go on.
Oh yeah. I have to agree with you with the UK festivals. I love doing the UK festivals. As a press person, I think the way they treat press too is like next level compared to anywhere else. It's like they make the job easier for the musician, for the press people, and everybody, crew, and everybody involved.
Yeah, the UK is laid back in a sense where I wouldn't expect that, but the press at the festivals in the UK are dialed in better than anywhere in the world. That's just a true fact. So I agree with you. I've never been a journalist going in, but they're always organized as an artist. Like, you're going here for 10 minutes, and they drag you to the next one. Boom, boom, boom. Then you're out. You're going to go enjoy lunch. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny you should say that, because it's kind of a peeve of mine. Because if I'm told, listen, you have 10 minutes, I'm going to be finished at 9:59. Now, a lot of the U.S. festivals, the person before you will go on for like 30 minutes, and it's like that domino effect. But
Yeah.
I think also the media people in the UK at the festivals, they work together. Like, instead of all being separate entities, it's like they all have each other's back. So it does run very smoothly, which is better for you guys, the artists, because listen, you are on a tight time schedule. So, doing stuff like that, it's important that everybody be on time. And then just the way you're treated. I've never heard anything bad said about anybody that runs a UK festival that I know of.
Yeah, no, we've had great experiences. So I'm sure there's bands out there that could tell you otherwise, but UK has always been awesome.
And how about Fat Records? Because I love them, but I think it's really a testament to, when bands like you have been with them like forever, because that doesn't always happen.
Well, yeah. So our last couple records, we've been on Pure Noise, but Fat still does reissues and does stuff for us. Of course, we've done a couple records with them. The original Borders and Boundaries was on Fat, and Fat Records is now we're going to be re-releasing our stuff with Hopeless, because Fat is getting
cool.
Fat is getting absorbed by Hopeless. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but yeah, Fat Records came along at a great time for Less Than Jake. We had recorded Borders and Boundaries for our third Capitol Records release. So it was funded from Capitol money, and we got the mixes back. We still thought we were on Capitol, and then we got dropped. And during this time, the president, our A&R person, and you hear this a lot from bands, that everyone was gone. And we got assigned this A&R guy who had been Megadeth's tour manager for years. I think he maybe managed Megadeth for a little while. This guy, Ron Lafitte, and Ron came in, and it just didn't, for us, this guy came in, and he was handed us, and, didn't really know what to do with us. You could tell his heart wasn't in it. So when they decided to drop us, we were like, well, this is great. We got this record, and Fat Mike picked it up immediately and stamped Fat Records on it, paid Capitol Records outright for the money they put into it. And it was the greatest thing that could have happened to us in hindsight. At the time, we didn't really care because we had a fan base that we were touring on. And luckily back then, there was no such thing or thought of a 360 deal. So we were just raking in at the box office, building this career. It's like, oh, we're not in a major anymore. It doesn't matter. We're still going to pull into Detroit. And there's going to be 1,500 kids there wanting to see us play. So no harm, no foul. But it was the greatest thing because we now had legitimacy as a punk band on Fat Records. Okay. Right. When we went to Europe, it was like our audience doubled because we were on Fat Records, which was really ironic because Borders and Boundaries up to that point was our most commercially accessible record. If you go listen to it, it was our cleanest production. We had some radio songs on there, and it wasn't that we were necessarily shooting for that. You know, we didn't have any outside writers. It was all in-house still, but we were growing and maturing. You know, we weren't just punk kids anymore. We were learning how to play our instruments. So it all worked out. It ended up being great.
And speaking of that, like, it's funny you say learning how to play your instruments because it's so true. You know, with anybody that's been in punk, what does it feel like to play in a punk band now after doing it for so long? What's the differences for you as a musician?
Well, at some point I realized that nobody's ever commented about how much energy I have on stage. I always talk about the band's energy, but you know, they've never once said, man, Chris is jumping off drum risers. He's jumping up in the air. He's pogoing half the set. And I've always been athletic. I've always exercised. I still do keep in shape, you know, cardio. But I realized at some point, no one's ever said anything because they don't care. You're beating the hell out of yourself for what? And I realized that once I wasn't hiding behind that anymore, because that was a defense mechanism in the early days. I knew I wasn't that great. We weren't that great. So just jump around and go crazy. Everyone's drunk anyways. No one's going to give a rat's ass. But you know, you want to get better at your craft. And I realized that if I just moved a little bit less, I could still rock out. The chords are a little cleaner. I'm not as much out of breath. I could sing a little better. And so there was a little bit of that growth that's happened over the years. Taking care of myself during the day, you know, not burning my candles. I go to bed at home at the same time every night. I get up and that's now the same thing with, you know, being on the road. I try to keep the same schedule.
Yeah. And you know, I love that you said that because it is kind of true. Sometimes I look at musicians, especially the young ones that are doing what you're describing, and I'm like, man, how are they playing their guitar, jumping around and flipping around like that? And I'm usually in awe, but then I listen to you and I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense that you're actually going to be a better musician if you're actually focused on it.
Also remember, you know, and this isn't any disrespect, a lot of the bands can go that crazy because they're using backing tracks today. That's just a fact of modern music. We don't have backing tracks. We're out there warts and all. That's what you get. And so if I'm going to be out there, you know, naked at the class play, I might as well be halfway decent.
Absolutely. And see, you said something I talk about all the time that I think a lot of people don't even realize when it comes to punk bands specifically is that, you know, you do want to hone in on your craft and become a better musician. Like you want to grow. A lot of times our hardcore fans as an artist, they want you to stay a garage band, but you as an artist, I mean, you're going to want to grow if you're a true artist.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I think that there's, you know, certainly, you know, Steve Jones is a better guitarist than he was in the 70s, you know, for the Pistols. But, you know, how good do you want the Pistols to be? You know what I mean? Like, how good do you want that to, you know? So you have to be reminded of that. It can't be too clean and pristine because I also know that frenetic energy and that looseness is what got us to where we were at. True. You know, I mean, I can look back to videos and just, they're online and all the time, you know, once a year I'll go to YouTube and just type in Less Than Jake 1995 and inevitably someone found a VHS tape in their mom's closet over Christmas and they uploaded it to YouTube and I'm watching it and it's like an out of body experience, man. I'm like, I know that's me. I have no recollection of this, but there's 1,000 kids losing their mind in Cleveland in this video. And I'm listening to the band with my eyes closed going, ooh, that's not that good. Then you open your eyes, you're like, okay, as long as I don't have to listen to the band with my eyes and my ears, I can just listen with my eyes. It's but it didn't matter. And it's also, we were always, we still are our own worst critics.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten off stage and been like, man, I phoned it in tonight, or that sucked. I was awful. And you got that kid standing there, or multiple. I've seen you 12 times. That was the best I've ever seen you. And you're like, okay, what do I know?
Right. I know that feeling too. Cause even I, like, every time I get done with my radio show or I get done doing an interview, I'm like, man, I fucking sucked, but
yeah.
But then I get like, oh, that was the best interview I ever had. I'm like, oh, really? and so, yeah, I mean, I get it too. But you guys are badass. I love that Borders and Boundaries has a special 25th anniversary reissue. Everybody has to go to Fat Wreck Records and go get it. Is there any other things that you want to let the listeners know that we haven't covered already?
That's about it. Go check out my podcast, Christy Makes a Podcast. It's a songwriting podcast where I interview guests from all genres of music to talk about one iconic song from their career. I've been doing it for 6 years, and you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. So thank you.
I love it. Well, thank you for making us great music all this time, and thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Right on. Thanks. Take care, my friend. Hey, it's Christian Less Than Jake, and you're listening to Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Rockville. Returns to Daytona International Speedway May 7th through 10th with Foo Fighters, My Chemical Romance, Guns N' Roses, and Bring Me the Horizon. Plus Turnstile, Five Finger Death Punch, The Offspring, Breaking Benjamin, A Day to Remember, Godsmack, and so many more. Welcome to Rockville, May 7th through 10th. Passes on sale now for as low as $1 down at welcometorockville.com. Sonic Temple Art and Music Festival returns May 14th through 17th with My Chemical Romance, Tool, Bring Me the Horizon, and Shinedown. Plus Pierce the Veil, Good Charlotte, The Offspring, Sublime, Godsmack, Breaking Benjamin, Marilyn Manson, and so many more. Sonic Temple in Columbus, Ohio, May 14th to 17th. Passes on sale now for as low as $1 down at sonictemplefestival.com.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm very excited about our next guest because, our main studio, where I'm at right now, is in South Florida, and this is one of the most amazing musicians that's going to have some very special tour dates exclusively in several Florida locations. So let's welcome to the show, Steve Hackett. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Nice to be talking to you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. You're going to be down here in Florida soon.
Yeah,
That's going to be pretty fun. So tell us a little bit about those shows you're doing here in Florida.
sure. Well, it's going to be a kind of best of Genesis and solo stuff. So I'm looking forward to doing that. It'll be the first dates with two new members of the band. One guy I've worked with before, Felix Lehrmann, who's German from Berlin, and a new keyboard player, Lalle Larsson from Sweden. So he'll be one of three Swedish guys I've got in the band. And
Nice.
these will be the first dates we're doing with him. So those guys have worked together before, I think, in a band called Agents of Mercy. The Nad Sylvan, Swedish, Jonas Reingold, Swedish, and now Lalle Larsson, kind of a United Nations of a band. I've had people from the UK, from Europe, from everywhere,
I love it.
Later in the year, I get to work with guys in South America and Hungary. I'm going to be working with guys from Hungary again soon. But the touring band that I'll have will be essentially my regular touring band, but with the exception of Roger King, who's officially retired now. He says, but maybe he'll keep going, doing classical stuff. I don't know. I think his first love is classical music, although he's done scores for films such as A Cliffhanger and The Name of the Father. And so I'm very sorry to see him go, but I'm working with new guys who happen to be brilliant.
Sometimes
it's
those
going
new
very well.
guys bring a little more spark sometimes too.
Well,
You know,
that's right. Yes, I think that the level of enthusiasm from guys I'm working with in the studio won't necessarily be the same guys that I'm working with live. I'm working with an Italian keyboard player called Riccardo Romano in the studio at the moment, and he's doing wonderful things. It's rather wonderful. I'm reconnected with Nick Magnus as well. We're going to be doing some things in the future. I did lots of albums with him back in the day. A few years after I left Genesis, I was working with Nick. We were doing many albums together. So there's a kind of continuity, but I think British music has always been ambitious to include as many instruments and unlikely instrumentation as much as possible. So I think we've always orientated towards groups that can become orchestras that wander off into places such as Azerbaijan, India, instruments from these places, to have that kind of exotica. In other words, rock, maybe it's a little bit like or cinematic orchestral plus rock, so that these atmospheres are interchangeable with each other. I owe a lot to film music, I think. My style is probably heading more towards film music than anything else. So if Mr. DeMille wants to give me a call, that's fine. Or his grandson, indeed.
very nice. I love hearing this because it is kind of cool. I think when you can make music that comes from like all over the world, because
Yeah.
there's so many different influences that can
Sure.
come into it to make it unique.
Yeah, I think so. When you think about the Russians with all the political suppression and all of that, coming up with this wonderful romantic music and all the experimental stuff as well. So those guys could really orchestrate and came out with great melodies. I suspect the weather had something to do with it. Why did England have Shakespeare? It's probably because he was stuck indoors because the weather was so awful.
I say that all the time, you know?
That's it. But hey, Florida, of course. Yeah, we all long to escape to Florida. That's what we dream of.
Well, speaking of weather, like I go to the UK twice a year to do festivals coverage over there, and I love it there, and I loved it. Everything about it except the weather. It's like, man, I had one of the festival promoters say, you should move over here so you could do all the festivals. And I'm like, I would if the weather was different. It's like bipolar there.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, at the moment, it's been, I might be doing England a disservice, but the reality is it has been raining for days, if not weeks. And every day I'm going out, I'm feeding the animals, and it's got to be, there's the food on the wet ground. Get it quick, guys, because otherwise it's going to be soggy in the extreme. So yeah, it's the downside of the UK. It's got a lot to recommend it, believe me.
Totally.
The UK on a sunny day, London is a wonderful place, but nobody comes to London for the weather.
That's for sure.
Yeah, you've got to be hardy.
But I do agree with that philosophy with the music, because I think about it, what do you do? Like, I'm originally from New York and New Jersey. What do you do during the winter? You basically hibernate. So when you hibernate, that's when your creativity can come out.
Yes, I think so. It's always been the case, why have I spent so many hours poring over a guitar? Yes, absolutely. England fails you on so many levels. Most of which are to do with the conditions. We're supposed to be going out tonight, so it'll be you go out with an umbrella, you get in the car, and you try and avoid the floods and all of that. Because we've been working hard. The team have been working hard at home, so I've got to take them out to dinner.
There you go.
That has to be done. It has to be born with grace. The terrible weather here, but you guys have got it made over there. It's
In some ways,
you have a choice. You have a choice of weathers and seasons within the borders.
Well, I think the United States is basically should be more like Europe, because each state does have, like you said, different weather, different cultures, different types of people,
Sure,
different geography. It's kind of the same thing. It's wild to me when I drive all over Europe, that to me it's just like I wouldn't even know I was going into another country except I saw the language change.
Yeah, it's funny, and you watch the news every day, and you hear that Greenland might become part of New Jersey. I mean, anything anything could happen.
I know, right? Oh my God!
You like that?
It is a wild. When you get to our stage of life, it's a pretty wild world that we live in. You think about, I think about stuff that happened in the '80s that I thought probably wouldn't happen again, and
No.
I think we're kind of there again in the '80s. It's like,
well, yeah. It's we live in interesting times, and nobody can really predict what's going to happen tomorrow.
No, but it creates great music though, because I think if you take some of the music from '70s, '80s, you could apply it to today just as well, and listen, just like the weather, if you're writing music, it comes from your experiences, and if there's a lot of experiences going on to write about, it makes for a lot of creativity.
Well, I think so. Over the course of a lifetime, when I was starting out, I was buying guitar records, at the age of 9, I think, and I would buy all these guitar records, Duane Eddy and the Shadows and stuff that all sounded like the Ventures, and then it wasn't really till I heard the Rolling Stones version of "I Want to Be Your Man" that I finally heard a guitar that ripped, and I always knew that it could. Somewhere in the back of my ESP, somewhere back there, even as a kid, I thought this instrument should rip, and now it does, of course. But then, once you've achieved that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I was a harmonica player 10 years before I was a guitarist, and then having played for years, when I was 16. I saw Paul Butterfield playing harmonica, and I thought, I don't know anything about guitar. I don't know anything about harmonica playing, because he's reinventing the instrument. The sound of it was so powerful, just incredible. So I did do a blues album at one point, which probably sold least well of all the things that I'd done, classical things, proggy things, etc. But there's something about it, of the direct contact of that other instrument that I trained to do, and within a blues context, I like it very much. But I'm also working on the idea of a sort of a Middle Eastern influenced blues harp sound. I believe that's possible. It's in the margins of what's possible, to create an instrument that people are not necessarily going to recognize, but that I can handle, shoving it through some of the stuff that I reserve for guitar usually. an Engel amp, an old, I think it's an NSM 57. I've got the one that looks rather like a gun. I wouldn't take it on a plane. They're going to stop you. Yeah, stand away from the microphones.
I actually get that a lot. Like when I go to travel for doing coverage at festivals, I have all my equipment. They always stop me. Like, what's this?
Exactly.
It's a microphone.
It's a microphone. Yeah. We've heard all that before. It's a harmonica. Yeah. Well, what do you do with that? Well, you blow into it and suck. That's what you do. Yeah. It's the most portable instrument you can possibly imagine.
Right.
But there's not too many gigs out there for even great harmonica players. Stevie Wonder usually does it for everybody. So
yeah, he was definitely great. John Popper of Blues Traveler is pretty great.
Yeah. Charlie Musselwhite, Paul Butterfield, Little Walter, Sonny Boy Williamson. Yeah, they all have their own style, and it's
what's interesting. What's interesting too is that probably the most famous Sabbath song is one with Ozzy playing harmonica, and he's not even a musician. He always said he wasn't a musician. He was
right. Yeah,
but like one of their most famous song has harmonica in it.
Yeah, I mean, in the course of a lifetime, I got to spend time with Larry Adler, for instance, and I was asking him for tips on harmonica. Even though I've been playing it all my life, I thought, I'm not going to play harmonica in front of this guy. He's got it down. He can play Rhapsody in Blue, George Gershwin, one hand on the piano, one hand on the harmonica. And that was a party piece for him. And he did it very well. It sounded really, really lovely. He's gone now, but and Butterfield. So all my mentors in the harmonica world have passed on. But then I'm going to mess around with it. Put it through different octaves, and
you can carry on the legacy of the harmonica.
That's right. I think that it's another string to your bow, really, if you can play another instrument like that.
I think if you're a true musician, like you want to experiment with all different types of instruments, and you look at somebody like Prince, and most people don't even know that loved Prince, that he could play. I don't even know. There were so many instruments he could play, and I think it's just, it becomes like a hobby, like, let me see what other instrument. I'm not even good at instruments, and I feel that way. Like I played drums, I played guitar. I was never really good, but like I'll walk into a store and I'll see a mandolin. I'm like, oh, maybe I should try that.
Well, there we are. I've played a mandolin. I'm not brilliant at it, but with, patient attention to detail, I think you can record something like that. And then there's, of course, nylon guitar, classical guitar, flamenco guitar. It's all very, very different to electric guitar. It's another instrument entirely. Yes, under the heading of guitar. But I've also played, it's a Vietnamese instrument, which is like the koto, dine chine. And that's very, very beautiful. So I've recorded that to good effect. Again, I think, when you're recording, you have the possibility to start and stop, pretty much like singing, if you think, I think I can do a better take as a singer. Even professional singers will say, I think I can hit that note more squarely, or I can put more into it. And I was doing this yesterday. I was recording some vocal stuff, and finding that I could, if you let yourself go, you can really rip if you want, and it's really as strong as any rock singing I've heard. But you have to be prepared to, put the edge on that. And I know a lot of people say you can't sing, but actually you can whisper and you can shout and scream. And all of those things are different voices that come from the same voice box here. So you can do that, and you can learn to control it. It can be learned. Peter Gabriel was saying this years ago. He was saying, "I believe singing's possible." He said, "If I can do it, then anyone can do it." There we are. You got it from the horse's mouth.
Oh, there you go. I love hearing that because I think we need more art in the world anyway, because that's
Yeah.
the ultimate uniter and it's the ultimate therapy. And like, so I think everybody should be able to exercise that art.
Well, I agree. You know, you've got to be able to bring the world together. If we can get everyone singing off the same page, if not the same hymn sheet, then I think the subtext of music, of course, is to re-energize people and heal. In
Yeah.
some cases, it's very, very powerful medicine, which is why we're involved with it.
Well,
There's so much to it. I'm always telling the story of if you read any of the books that were written by Oliver Sacks, the doctor, the guy who basically wrote Awakenings, which became the movie, these sort of studies of the human mind and the outer limits of the diseases that people can suffer from. One woman had a thing called akinesia, one of his patients. She would become frozen and she couldn't move until she heard a piece of music that moved her emotionally. And then there was a direct correlation between her ability to be able to move physically, having heard something which moved her emotionally. So if that isn't medicine, I don't know what is.
oh, no doubt. Of course. Listen, I actually have had this idea recently that we should have a music festival that's for the whole world and the whole world has to attend. And then
Ah.
we could just work out all our problems.
Well, that would be really good, wouldn't it? You know, the Beatles kind of did that with All You Need
Right?
Is Love. You know, how many million subscribers there were. You know, if you had a TV, you tuned into that channel, and there I was sitting at home, black and white TV, watching this stuff going on, and it seemed like, you know, the center of the world and the most important thing possible was that concert. Everyone was tuned into it, and yeah, there's the moonshot. You're going to be there for that. A few other world events, but it's beyond your favorite soccer team winning. It's beyond sport. It's somehow, yes, there's this song and everyone's in it. A piece of music that features so many other snippets of music as well.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, in a kind of pastiche, a parody kind of setting, but it doesn't even start off with the Beatles. Starts off with French national anthem, La Marseillaise, you know, and wanders off into In the Mood, and all the rest. And music ought to be that free once again, to be able to have that degree of
Agreed.
confidence. If you've got the world's ear and all the eyes of the world are on you as well, you can do that kind of thing. But I can hear other musicians perhaps listening to this saying, "Oh, well, music was a lot different then. They could do what they liked because they were the Beatles." Well, you know, it's like don't dream it, be it.
Yeah.
Let's you know, I wanna hear your wildest fantasies musically, because you know it can't go on just being, you know, this one horse trick and down home and yeah, mating ritual based and all that. Hey, we've done all that, you know. Come on, let's have some new stuff. Otherwise, it's always going to be movies that are going to give you the new music,
Yeah.
because they are, with a willing producer, always allowed to do so. But you know, I think, you know, rock formats have become very constrained.
I say, like, nowadays, a lot of rock music has to have this like formula
Mm, yeah,
that they have to apply to it, where there was
yeah,
no formula. I think bands like the Beatles
yeah.
like made the formula.
Sure, that's right.
Like,
Well, that's right. Yeah, you know, and you should be allowed to stretch out and do what you want. Music with surprise, and music that's inclusive and has surprises. If music doesn't have surprises in it, then I can't see why it's worth listening to. So
I think about the greatest bands, like especially from like the 60s and
sure,
70s,
yeah,
that they evolved throughout their whole career. They were never just one genre. You can't, most of the bands from them, you can't pinpoint them to one genre,
I
you know?
think you're absolutely right. The pan genre approach is the way forward. So if we all adopt the mantle of being character actors in music, we can wander into uh, 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 um, unfamiliar territory, but acquit ourselves reasonably. I think that's the main thing, and why not? You know, I was writing something the other day that was in the style of early Danny Kaye, and I was thinking, I wonder if I can get away with this or not. You know, but it was just like a nonsense song,
Right.
and I thought, well, this is the kind of stuff that I listened to when I was a kid. This was the stuff that was on radio. A lot of comedy songs, um, but you know, but we loved them for that
Yeah.
reason. Um,
It's the simplicity. Like we want to
yes,
escape life, and
yeah,
life is complicated. So how we escape
yes,
life?
yeah.
Simple
That's it.
music, you
Yes,
know?
that's it. Yeah. So, you know, we're at the point where AI can do it all anyway. So the game's up. So you might as well change the game, because if you don't, you will be caught out. Move on, my friend, I would
Yeah,
say.
totally. Meanwhile, does it blow your mind that you're doing 50th anniversary
Yeah, I
of
know.
The Lamb Lies Down on
Yep,
Broadway? I mean,
yep. Well, as I say, you know, yeah, I sort of did whole albums. I was doing the whole of Selling England by the Pound, the whole of Foxtrot, maybe half of Lambert Down on Broadway, and future stuff. I'll be doing a best of cherry picking across all of Genesis stuff and my own stuff, and to be able to serve up the best with. I like to think of it as an incredible band I have with extraordinary virtuosos. It's a little bit like talking to our bass player, Jonas. He says, you know, you've got to have the Real Madrid. You know, talking about soccer, you know, the best players are Real Madrid. For those who are unfamiliar with Real Madrid, you need that in music. You know, this team
yeah.
has to be, it has to be the best players. And I've arrived at that point. I've got the best players who are incredible virtuosos. I mean, any one of them will blow you away tomorrow. You know, they can all hold the floor and do solos, and they're all incredible. So yeah, they've got chops to die for sure. I mean,
If
I
you,
remember a time where there was, you know, a Mahavishnu orchestra where, you know, jazz at that point had become extremely fashionable because they were borrowing from rock. So they were, you know, great jazz players, but they were doing it with rock sensibility. So whatever you were going to say, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
oh no, this is all about you. Who cares what I have to say? But but
Well, I
it
thought it
does
was
blow
about
my
us. But there we go.
well, it does blow my mind.
Yeah,
And I 50 years of anything, like anything in my
yeah,
life, I'm like,
yeah,
oh, that was 50. I mean,
yeah.
50 years ago, did you think that you'd be sitting here now doing some shows in Florida as a 50th anniversary?
No, 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 no.
Exactly.
That's yeah. I mean, I started out professionally doing music in 1971 when I joined Genesis. I'd been with a band called Quiet World a year before that, and we'd done an album together. But I'd been trying to make music ever since I was 2 years old, ever since my father had a harmonica, and he gave it to me, and he didn't get it back. You know, that was the thing. So ever since I was 3 or 4, I was playing Scotland the Brave, Oh Susanna. What was my little repertoire in those days? Yeah, there was one other, I think, God Save the Queen. Um, yeah, extraordinary stuff. Yeah, that was a few national anthems in there, I think. Yellow Rose of Texas, I seem to like that one too. Uh, had no idea where Texas was, where that came from, and where was the runaway train, all of that. But you hear those early kind of country tunes and cowboy tunes, and they still sound great. I've still got a soft spot for Roy Rogers and A Four-Legged Friend, all of that. I'm right there. And it influenced my dad, and he influenced me with this stuff. So long before I'd heard Tchaikovsky or Bach or any of those guys.
And see, that's the key. Everything you're saying about is like, it doesn't matter as long as it's music, you know. There's good music in every genre, you know, and you just explore it.
Yeah, and whether it's instrumental or vocal or whatever it is, it re-energizes people, brings people together, heals people, does all sorts of magical things. So I definitely feel I'm in the right profession. It's most people have to work for a living. I get to play for a living, and that's a privilege, and I don't forget it for one single day.
And I love when somebody totally has passion for what they do, because in this business, if you don't have passion for music, it's the wrong business, because that's the best part of it.
For sure, absolutely, yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful, and of course, you know, I had all my heroes back then, and I see people now who I think are incredible players and singers, and Jimmy Webb, of course, who somebody gave him something and he wrote a little note to me, and I was reminded of the days when Genesis, very early years, we were all asked to give our favorite single when it was 5 of us, and 4 of us, without conferring, all chose Richard Harris's MacArthur Park. And we hadn't conferred, but we were all on the same page.
That's amazing.
So, you know, I think he happens to be the world's best living songwriter. And I'm sure that Glenn Campbell would probably have agreed with me. And the stuff he did with Art Garfunkel is just to die for. So that's really wonderful. Wonderful album called Watermark, which was a follow-up to Breakaway. Should have been a huge hit. Whenever I play it to musicians, they say, I must have a copy of this album. It's beautifully produced. Funnily enough, I was there in LA looking at Cherokee Studios when the studio manager, Con Merton, I think his name was, interrupted Art Garfunkel when he was recording this song. I mean, how embarrassing is that? He's recording this thing that was to become one of my favorite albums. And there it was. How dare you interrupt, you know, that to this Brit in, this limey, he wants to rent the studio. But hey, sorry, Art, you know, we're just having a look in here, you know, yeah, carry on. Fine. You know, he could have been in the middle of Jesus knows what, you know.
Right.
Now, my only problem is in 1 minute I have to do another Zoom. I mustn't let them down. How do I do that?
We've covered everything we need to cover.
Oh, I hope so. It's been fantastic talking.
Pleasure's all mine.
I hope we do.
Absolutely.
Again.
And hopefully, you'll have a lot of fun here in Florida.
I'm going
to. And everybody, you check out the notes and you'll find the dates and how to get tickets. And thanks a lot for making us great music for all this time.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Thank you. My floral shorts are ready for Florida and the sunshine.
There you
so
go.
Much.
You got it.
Hi there, this is Steve Hackett. You're listening to The Adventures of the Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
Thank you for listening to The Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.